For
Coming
folks that
up
are
next,
interested in making some music,
yeah,
too.
that's a good segue.
Yeah.
There is this amazing open source project called SNESology, and this is basically like I think it's like a web-based DAW that has all kinds of like
sound fonts from a lot of different console sound chips.
It's really, really cool.
I'm personally very excited.
Yeah, and this is going to be highly informative in educational,
right?
And really, really entertaining. And we even have, I believe, the developer who will be in chat answering some questions. It's going to be super, super cool. So if you yourself have ever thought about, hey, you know, I want to shred like Button Masher.
There you go.
Well,
I mean, I want to shred like Button Masher.
I think we all do.
Yes.
But step one is to grab a good DAW or, you know, whatever. But I think
SNESology might be the one-way ticket there.
This is
you
definitely
are set for it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess
we're gonna find out essentially what the whole thing is, and it is open source. Isn't it?
Open source. That's one of the. I believe it works on like mobile as well.
Whoa!
It might just be HTML5 based. I'm sure you guys are gonna learn a lot more. I know I'm personally really looking forward to this panel. So, you know, I feel like without further ado, we might as well just launch it. Stoto, do we have
absolutely
the? Yeah. Let's roll that panel.
Okay.
Let's do it.
That sounds
all right.
good.
You guys enjoy.
Hi, MAGWest. Welcome to the short presentation on the relaunch of the SNESology project at snesology.net using the audio source Composer. My name is Arya Sulin. My artist name is Protricity, and been around for about 20 years. I used to do some remixing back in the day. Lately I've been into programming, especially when it comes to web technology and audio. The SNESology project allows anybody with a web browser, eventually with mobile devices too, to compose and share original music that they compose, or that people composed, based on chip consoles like the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, NES, Sega, and so forth. This is an online digital audio workstation, so I'll don't have to download anything, you don't have to manage any samples, and you don't have to install other people's instruments in order to edit their songs. Our focus on this project will mainly be creating sample collections that other people can use based on the chip consoles, based on video games like Contra, Super Mario World, Zelda Link to the Past, and focusing on synthesizing the original chip synthesizers, like the pulse width modulation of the Nintendo sound chip. All right, a little bit of background. A little bit of background on video game music. Video game music appreciation has been around for a long time in many forms and formats. One common format would be recording the video game song directly off of the console and onto, say, a cassette tape or an MP3 file, and playing it back or sharing it with your friends. Another common format for video game music appreciation was the MIDI rip. If you go to websites like vgmusic.com, you'll find literally tens of thousands of MIDI rips transcribed by the author as close to the original as they could get. They're not allowed to use the original samples of the original songs because MIDI is only allowed to use general MIDI samples, which sound different on every player. So this is not the best way to get close to the original format. A more sophisticated format would be the VGM file or SPC file, NSF file, all of those kinds of things. They're now being called the video game music file, and they are basically exact interpretations of the original sound as they are emulated on the original game. These formats are tiny and portable, and they can be played back on many players, but cannot be opened or edited very easily. It's difficult still to interpret what the individual instructions of the song were what the author was intending. These were instructions meant for a sound chip on a console, and they're not read out as standard MIDI. So these formats cannot be edited, and the samples cannot be extracted easily. For example, if you heard a video game song that has some amazing samples in there and instruments, you want to take them out and use them in your own songs, but you can't because nobody has figured out a way to isolate that one sound and then process it into an actual instrument that you can use on a modern DAW. The only thing we got now is the ability to play back the songs. So, excellent format, and these guys at VGM Rips have done an excellent job collecting them and making them tiny. Next step is what SNESology is wanting to do. But first, one more form of music appreciation, the remix websites. Like ocremix.org, you basically got people making semi-professional songs in professional DAW software. It sounds great, and really they're able to express what they feel and how they felt about the original game and so forth. But you can't just go into that MP3 file and say, how did they do that? Or how did they use that instrument? Or can I have that instrument? Can you give it to me? You might actually find an author that's charitable enough to send you their song source files. But you'll quickly learn, unless you're using Reason, that it is very difficult to load up a song, have all the instruments available, have all of the samples on your local computer also available and ready to go so that it plays back correctly. It's a long process. So that's where SNESology comes in. So some background information on the SNESology project. It was started by Sam Osher-Wise, artist name Schnabubula. And here you can see his Bandcamp website, SNESology Special Edition. If I hit play, at the races, Super Mario Kart. You may recognize Super Mario Kart samples are being used here. Good usage of Super Mario Kart samples too. If I was to hit play here, Final Fantasy VI samples. And of course everyone recognizes Super Mario World. So, how did he do this? Because he really has the sound down. He took the SPC files, it's him and Alex Rotaka, took the SPC sample files and extracted the samples as best they could using the tools that they had, and then retuned each sample at the right frequency and right looping points. They packaged it in the NKI format, which is contact instruments, and released them. So right here you can see the release sets, Contra, Final Fantasy VI, Secret Evermore, so forth. No Super Mario Kart. Ugh, I want that one, but we'll get there. So, these are essentially packaged for contact. You have to have contact, you have to have a DAW. Contact's free, but there's limitations to the free version. The point is that this format is not extractable and used in other players. So, from here, well, let me finish the history. SNESology project released these NKI samples, and they got submissions, many submissions from people using them and saying, wow, this worked out great. I did this, I did that. Some of these are updates. Here we go. And we essentially were managing the blog SNESologyTumblr.com. Not me, I wasn't doing it. The rest of the crew. They're posting all the new submissions. These were usually uploaded in YouTube, and we're just kind of collecting the links, that kind of thing. Not much of a website, just a blog. So, where do we go from here? In the last 2 years, the SNESology project has been restarted as an online web DAW, digital audio workstation. This is a music composer that works on any platform, browsers, and mobile phones eventually as well, and tablets. The web audio API is a universal API that allows us to essentially synthesize music on a browser. The idea for the audio source composer software that we're using for the SNESology project is to remove all of the constraints that I mentioned earlier regarding downloading and managing samples and files and installing instruments. For audio source and for our SNESology project, all of our libraries are stored in JSON files and hosted on websites, on our website, SNESology.net. The files are small, so we got small WAV files and so forth that are easy to host, so there's no problem with hosting. But if we do want to host larger libraries later, we have the potential to host torrent sample libraries. And as long as we follow the JSON format, here's an example of the Final Fantasy VI sample library in JSON format. As you can see, there's the sample files there. You can see bass, lead, banjo. You got everything down to the percussion, hi-hat, cowbell, and so forth. Each listed with its instrument, its loop point set, and its envelope as well. So essentially anyone can help with this project by creating and editing these JSON library files that we then host online, which makes them available to the editor, the online DAW. Here's an example of a song. This is a Terra MIDI that I imported, Final Fantasy VI Terra MIDI imported, and tried to assign a bunch of, triangle and so forth to it. So the JSON files are stored as such, and all of the notes are stored as such in a portable format. It's kind of big and it's a lot larger than MIDI, but it has the ability to grab samples from any resource, including torrents. One of the focuses that we have with the instruments in SNESology is recreating the Nintendo synthesizers. One obvious one would be the pulse width. Pulse width would be the width between when the pulse signal starts and stops, and it creates, by modulating the pulse width, we basically create all those cool Nintendo leads. So that's an example. Here's the a picture. Here's the page for the demo for the editor. This editor is in mobile format, so as you can see, the menus here is on the left, and we can switch it to full screen, and now the menu will be on the top. All right, so the composer. All right, so a quick demonstration of how the composer works. As you saw, this is the mobile view, so the composer's menus are on the side, so you click on a menu, you go to the next menu, you go back, that kind of thing. If you were to open up a instrument and hit an internal menu, it would also open up from the left side, edit mixer, edit detune, that kind of thing. You can actually hit the mixer right there if you want. So that's mobile view. I want to show you that real fast. And here is desktop view. The menus on the top, it's the same menus, and it responds to the program's internal menus as well, like that. So what we got for menus, we got file, open song from memory, recently stored songs, from file, from URL, can save a song to memory, save a song to file, import from a MIDI file, export, not there yet, to MIDI file, publish to SNESology. We'll get there in a second. Edit, these are the track command, this is editor for the track below. You can insert a command by note or by octave and then note. You can insert a track as a command. You can just change the program on the track. And here's the track menu, add, remove tracks, or rename them. Right now we just have the root track and track 0. Here's the programs. Right now we just have a default oscillator. View and option settings, and of course publishing the song to the server, which we'll get to in a second. Your playback panel right here, this is your selected track and your selected instructions down here, and then your programs. So right now we have a default program. Let's change it again. Let's change the program to oscillator and node instrument. So it's unknown oscillator. So now let's change it to a pulse. Notice with pulse we have the pulse width. I mentioned this earlier. The pulse width modulation of the NES is what gives it that classic sound. So let's go back really fast. Sawtooth. This is me hitting keys on my keyboard. This is me hitting notes on my MIDI keyboard. You can notice the velocity difference there. We've got both of them hooked up here, so it's easy to make songs with just keyboards. You don't need to hurt your wrist with mice all day. I know I will like that. So let's go back to the pulse. So the pulse sounds like a square wave, sort of, at 100% or 0%. It sounds just like a square wave. You add a little bit more width to it, and I'm sure you're starting to recognize some of the classic NES synth leads. Right. So we got the oscillator instrument, which allows us to do all of our our NES instrument samples, but we will need a regular sample player. Even on NES, you have some samples, like in Mario 3. So we can add another instrument here, audio buffer, and instead of trying to find the sample, let's use our preset browser. This is pretty cool because we have all of the sample libraries that we've compiled and released and hosted available on the editor already. You can see here, say Super Mario World. I click on that and I get, well, we didn't really name the samples too well just yet, but you can see they're all here. If we go to Final Fantasy and check cello, it loads that for us. Right, so we're using the Final Fantasy VI sample set here, and we're also able to use NES style synthesizers. So that is a quick demo of how the programs or instruments work in the Audio Source Composer on the SNESology project. There's more to show, but I don't want to go into all the details. I'd rather just show how, in general, you can see a song that you like or you heard published on the website. In this case, it's just me. And then you would go to that song and you'd see the details that they discuss, but you'd also be able to see the song itself and edit the notes, check out the programs, how they do that, how you do the flute, strings, that kind of stuff. And of course, you'd want to open that in full screen editor if you were serious about checking out that program. Here's an example of SDNX MIDI rip, as I mentioned before, imported into this program and sampled with your default lead instruments. Some of the original stuff's in there, and some NES percussion samples. So let's hear it. And you can see the notes playing there too. This is one of the better sounding songs I have going on right now because I haven't really put too much work into the fine-tuning. Mostly just trying to finish the composer and getting it working. So let's stop that one. Here's SDNX, another MIDI rip. Just a little bit slower, showing you the individual notes playing. And these are just two square waves. Piece of cake. Watch, I'll switch it to sine wave. Oh wait, that's not supported yet. There we go. Now we're hearing it with sine waves. Way better, right? Yeah, so much better. What else do we got here? Okay, so on the SNES side of things, we have mostly samples, no synthesizers. This is where it gets difficult. These samples need to be just a little bit better curated. They loop and beyond the loop point, and you know, the frequencies and stuff are a little bit off. There's just a lot of work, individual fine-tuning of these samples, and they will sound just as good as they did in the NKIs. So here you go. Ooh, not great, right? But you get the idea. Okay, enough of that. Yeah, those instruments were not tuned correctly, and there's a lot of work that could be done. I don't think they're even assigned correctly, but you get the idea. And another example of a song that didn't really pan out the way I was trying to do it. If you recognize this by now, the Q4 ending. And actually, it kind of sounds cool, but these aren't the exact synths that they used in that. You know, we gotta fine-tune these synths and get them sounding with the envelope correct and everything exactly the way they did in the original NSF. And then we can call that sample bank done. Alright, what else do we got? Alright, I hope that gave you a little idea of how the composer works. It's in alpha right now, not beta yet, which means that not all the features are quite there yet. We're very close to beta, meaning there's just a couple things missing and there's a lot of bugs. So just stay with us, and within a matter of months we should have a lot more solid, kind of responsive and polished version. So just to recap on this project, the SNESology project, we're restoring and remixing classical chiptune music, trying to get the original sounds out of the chips, out of the songs, into accessible format that anyone could just grab onto and just start using. The ability to create and publish songs on any device to a server, not just SNESology or my servers, but anyone should be able to set this up and publish their own songs to their own servers. Streaming samples, should be able to stream them from any server that hosts samples, or even a torrent, as long as there's seeders. Let's see what else we got. The instruments are open source. The whole thing is, but the instruments themselves can be written in JavaScript, so you can easily manipulate the details of how audio processing works. Get in there deep without compilation or any of that VSTI headache. What's currently working is you can edit, add, delete notes, add note velocity and duration. You got quarter tone capability, which is really cool. That's for you music people. That's it's 24 tones in the octave rather than 12. Arabic music and so forth uses it. Recursive playback of tracks, kind of a new thing that MIDI hasn't introduced, and might allow for a lot more structured songs. The 432 Hertz compatibility, that's pretty cool. Some people think it makes songs sound better. Built-on web audio technology, like I said. You write the instrument once and it'll work on all platforms, and that includes mobile and browser. We're using React.js and React Native to kind of get that compatibility. We're looking at all full chip support, trying to get them all. Eventually want to put like audio recording in there. A big missing feature is the XY grid, notation grid that everyone's used to on DAWs. We don't have that yet. It's the last thing to design because it requires video rendering. I want to make sure I get that cross-platform. So that's next. We're going to have a notation editor with the mouse just like it used to, but we just don't have it yet. Server-side song rendering, that'll be cool. MIDI files, we sort of got that going. Editing songs in real time. I actually had this working about a year ago, but I haven't developed this any further. Just like Google Docs, you want to be able to get in there and look at somebody else's file, doc, and say, push this note here, tweak that, fine-tune this instrument. You know, do it for them on your browser. You know, don't download and worry about file versions. Just do it like Google Docs. So that's right there coming. We're going to do that. Eventually, we can talk about professional services. You know, maybe you can actually make money trying to help people remix songs or get good at it. There's no legal, issues there. If you want to help with this project, just reach out to us on the Discord or on the GitHub repository. Just reach out any way you want. And on GitHub, mostly what you can do is you can report bugs. You can say, wow, this doesn't work at all. This sort of works. Here's what you're going for, but you don't have it yet. Just whatever you want to say. It's all open, and I'll get back to you. We'll get back to you. Hopefully we'll get some more developers here soon. Someone help me out here. The other thing that we can definitely use help with is a sample curation. Let's go find all those samples and let's build sample libraries and release them. And that's just a ton of work and attention to detail and love, essentially. I just don't have the ability to do it all by myself. So that's where we're at, and we're going to have that beta soon, like I mentioned. So definitely check back soon, SNESology.net. Hit us up on the Discord, try out some songs, make some of your own, and very soon here we'll have publishing, and I didn't even show that part, song publishing, directly from the browser to the website, and then suddenly your song appears on your playlist on your section of the website. Then the idea is to get onto playlists, front page master playlist or individual playlists that users create based on their own preferences, that kind of thing. It's a wide open source project. So I'm really hoping to hear some feedback soon, and I'm going to keep this going, another year of development, and I really appreciate everyone for tuning in. All right, thank you guys. Have a good MAGWest. See ya.